Alright all, and welcome back to a new video and another Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post update, and probably the last Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post update I will do before we get on to the main preview videos very soon. We've had plenty of these videos throughout the year where we've discussed what's gone on, especially in big meetings, and obviously I couldn't let the Dublin Racing Festival go by without doing a Ante-Post video in regards to that, and also the good racing at Sandown and Musselburgh that we saw this weekend as well. Plenty of high profile winners, plenty of talking points and plenty of potential Cheltenham winners that we did see from the weekend. And of course there will be one more Ante-Post bet being put up here at the end of today's video, bet number 11 for my Ante-Post portfolio or book or whatever you want to call it, which is looking okay at the moment. It's probably a 50-50 book based off what I've put up so far. Of course though, as I said, a great weekend it was at the Dublin Racing Festival. From a punting perspective, if you do follow me on Twitter, or if you don't follow me on Twitter, I do advise you to go and do so. The description's in the link is in the description below, because the Twitter selections that I put up over in England and Scotland actually kind of bailed me out. The ones from Leopardstown were tricky, there's no getting away from that. I was a bit down on the Leopardstown selections, but overall I made a small profit on the weekend because we banged in a double at Musselburgh on Sunday and back Native River on Saturday at Sandown at 13-2. We ended up going off, which was a great price. So there's just a little bit of, to and fro. Sometimes it can happen in Ireland sometimes it can happen over in England to bail you out, but overall kept my powder clean at least, and hopefully that can be the case going forward to Cheltenham. It was one of those weekends at Leopardstown actually that all the favourites went in, and when you're trying to oppose favourites, you're trying to oppose Willie Mullins horses at the top of the market and give each way alternatives. Like, it just was a day or a couple of days where they all went in, and so few times does that happen. And I know on Twitter there was a few accumulators doing the rounds on Saturday evening that a few people had brought up a 4 or 5 timer, I think 5 timer maybe, with all the grade 1s and the bumper all going to favourites and short price horses. If that's the sort of way you bet, I wouldn't put you off it, but it's not how I do things. I try to keep away from accumulators and stuff like that. I invariably find that something lets me down whenever I do it. So that's just the way I've been brought up. Obviously, there was that mass gamble over in England yesterday. 2 up in Musselburgh and 1 at Southall. Unfortunately, was foiled in the third leg. I see some people humming and hawing about it. Good on them, in my book, really. Like, I know you can say it's a little bit of a, obviously it was a major plot, and is it within the kind of justice of the game? Maybe it isn't, but I don't know, I'd much prefer that to have landed than seeing Charles Burns win one of the big handicaps in the Dublin Racing Festival. Like, I understand how he's still getting runners, or runners are being run in his name, and he's still being able to train because of this appeal. But I just don't think it's right, and I don't think it gives a great look to the sport that a guy that we've tried to ban for 6 months is suddenly winning on the Dublin Race Festival. Well, fair play to Charles. He went and did an interview with the RTE coverage, which I didn't think he would do, to be honest. I didn't think he'd even almost be there. I thought he'd be a kind of marked man, really, but he went over and chatted. Now he never really gives anything away, and he's there saying that he only backs horses, doesn't lay horses. We'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. I'd be quite dubious myself, but I'm not really in a position to talk. Don't know all the details of the case, and if you don't know all the details, you can't come to rash conclusions. But in terms of the gamble yesterday, it was a bit of a shame, actually. Like, you think back, like, the bookies restrict some of my accounts, and I'm not any sort of threat to bookies, really. Like, I'm an average punter, that makes a bit of profit. Like, I've been up now the last year and a half or so, but not monumental amounts of money, and yet they restrict accounts left, right, and centre. And if you have a winning account, you're struggling to get bets off. So fair enough if somebody wants to take the bookies to the cleaners and has 3 horses that they feel is going to land them a big pot. you know, I'd be all for it, to be honest. The bookies restrict enough accounts without us trying to land one back as the average punter. But anyway, that's enough rambling about all of the kind of news and views, I suppose. It's taken 5 minutes to do so apologies for that. But moving on to the racing itself, starting off on Saturday with day one, and Gallard de Menil won the Nathaniel Lacy race. It was something at the back of my head I thought might happen. And he was absolutely superb, I thought. It was very impressive. He jumped overall pretty well, put the race to bed, turning in. I thought for a second we might have had him on Stattler turning in. Thought Danny Mullins gave Stattler a brilliant ride. He's obviously a horse that just keeps galloping. He doesn't have much of a turn of foot. I think it was a grand old Albert Bartlett trial for him. Gallard de Menil will go back to the Ballymore. He'll have to have his A game on. Obviously, it looks a strong race with Brave Man's Game and Bob Ellinger, and now he's added into the mix. Three very promising and very strong looking novice hurdlers. I don't think a step back down and trip will, you know, the furlong or so, whatever it is, would be of any inconvenience. I think it would actually help him out, because he can be a little bit keen in the early parts of his races. He obviously wears the hood, and I think a strong Cheltenham Festival gallop should see this horse to best effect. Second, third and fourth, I see a lot of people saying they ran very good Bartlett trials. I'm pretty happy. I put Stattler up. I'm going to go through my bets at the end of the video, but I put Stattler up at 20-1 for the Albert Bartlett. I see he's now 10-1. I think that's still a fair price at 10-1. It's such an open race. I thought Gentleman's Game, just a few thoughts, and this is without even, you know, the bias of me backing Stattler. I thought Gentleman's Game ran a cracker. I would just be a little bit concerned with Gentleman's Game running in the Bartlett, having had 2 runs under rules. I think he's a proper good horse, but the way Mouse trains them, he trains them to come on as chasers. There's no getting away from that. And this horse is a very good horse. It wouldn't surprise me. I said a couple of weeks ago, I think on one of these videos, that I'd be surprised if he went to Cheltenham. I'd say they'll find it very hard to not go to Cheltenham now, having put in such a good performance to come second and beat Stattler, who's the favourite. That being said, he's only he's ran in a point-to-point and then 2 runs under rules. It is an awful lot, you know, of inexperience going into such a tricky race, I believe, anyway. I think he's a classy horse, and I know the last 2 years of the Albert Bartlett, that kind of trend of being a hardened horse has slightly gone out the window, I suppose, because Manella Indo won it. He was very inexperienced, and Monkfish won it last year, and he was relatively inexperienced, especially given the overall trends. But they still had 4 or 5 runs under rules, the 2 of them, and this Gentleman's Game is just very, very short on experience, and that would be the only thing that I'd be, you know, wary of with him. I think he's a super horse. He'll be a smashing 3-mile chaser in time, in a year or two's time, and if you've backed him, I wouldn't put you off, but those would just be my reservations in terms of thinking of backing him. And the one that I can't get my head around, and I know some of you probably have backed him, and he seems to be a complete wise guy's horse, is this Fakira. I just don't see it at all. I think you could run a race over 6 miles and he'd be outpaced and be running on. He just seems to be one of those horses. Like, fair enough, he's a grand old horse. He could run well in a Bartlett, but I just don't think he justifies being the price he is. Like, he was nowhere in that race and is kind of plugged on past beaten horses, the likes of Ashdale Bob, Holy Macapony, that were treading water turning in. He hasn't really landed any type of blow on the leaders at any stage, and the likes of Gentleman's Game and Stattler are miles clear of him. I can't understand how Gentleman's Game, as much as I've said a few reservations, how is he a bigger price than Fakir? I don't understand that. Like, Gentleman's Game, if you're taking it on form and form only, should be the same price as Stattler, or maybe a point bigger, just if you're saying Stattler maybe fits a couple more stats. I don't know. I don't get this Fakira hype whatsoever. I know he's a dour stayer. I know 3 miles might suit, but I think you could throw him in the National and he'd be outpaced at some stage. He just looks so slow. And he looks like he's just one of those horses, I think, that he's just always going to be outpaced and always going to plug on. And it's not going to quite happen for him at the top level. But I'm prepared to be proven wrong there. Jacques Amboursois, no need to kind of look at this too much. I thought he's absolutely superb. Obviously a real shame with Min. God knows where that leaves Min. Is he okay? I'm not sure. There's been a rumour or two going around that he might be out for the season now. I really hope that's not the case. But it was obviously such a shame to see him not jump with any fluency. He wasn't ever travelling. Jacques Boursois, I thought maybe for a little bit at 2 out he might be in a bit of trouble here. Fakir Duderies ran a huge race, way surpassing my expectations of how he'd run. But I think that's how they'll ride him at Cheltenham, actually. They want this horse to be coming late. And actually, the past couple of times he's been winning Grade 1s around Leopardstown. You think of the Dublin Chase last year and the race at Christmas this year. He ended up in front turning in. And he doesn't want to be out in front that long. As for he could really wait and produce him at the last. And it was the strongest final furlong I think we've almost ever seen from Jacques Boursois at Leopardstown as a result. And I do think it's benefiting from that real, a strong enough gallop to aim at and then picking it up, turning in, or, going towards the last rather than, at 2 out. Sometimes his jumping kind of takes him to the front in these races. As for, you'd want him to be sitting and then produce to pounce. Energumene won the Irish Arkle over the same course and distance. Look, just because I know a few people will like to know about these things, because I see a few people that were not questioning the performance, but were maybe not convinced by the performance. Then there's people that say are cracking on about his time. Look, I don't know about for you guys, but I know there's a massive amount of people out there that will do times, and they'll do times religiously, and they'll have a book and they'll do their ratings based on times. If you do that, fair enough, more help to you. But for the average person like myself, or maybe some of you guys that don't really look at times, you can kind of construe times for your own agenda. So if you're a fan of Energumene, you're going to be, oh gee, he was 2 seconds quicker than Jacques Boursois. But at the same time, that it kind of is somewhat meaningless, because he was 2 seconds ahead of Jacques Boursois jumping the first, and actually Jacques Boursois was quicker than him from 3 out to the last. I did the timings even myself to prove it. So you can kind of you can take times, if you're not a religious times man, you can take times to suit your own agenda, and whether you're pro or against Energumene, that's the way it's going to be. I thought he was really good. He's obviously a slick jumper. He's a very good horse. I was really devastated to see Captain Guinness come down. I thought he was running a huge race. I don't think he'd have beaten him, but I think he'd have been second again. That being said, with Energumene, I thought just being, and there's going to be a few ones in here that are maybe going to be a little bit hypercritical, and you guys are maybe going to pile in, and fair enough if you think so. I thought he was a little bit more impressive at Naas, personally speaking. I just thought the race at Leopardstown there on Saturday completely fell apart in behind. There was a couple of absolute no-shows. Darver Star, Felix Deji, never picked up the gallop. Unexpected, JP runner, 5-1 out to 12-1. He's a front runner, and they're holding him up in 6th or 7th. I can't understand that. And obviously Captain Guinness fell, and Franco Deporte made a pretty much race-ending mistake at the 3rd, the 2nd going away from the stands. So you could argue that the race did fall apart. That being said, he's jumping for fun out in front, and he's putting a lot of horses under pressure as a result, and I'll talk about that with Monkfish later. He's putting horses under pressure out in front by this fluent jumping. He's getting away from horses, and he just out-jumped Captain Guinness at 2 out. He put Captain Guinness on an awkward stride, and he couldn't come up, as for Energumene winged it. And those are the signs of really good horses. He's got a battle on with Shishkin. I think people forget how good Shishkin is, but look, the two of them seem to be very good, and hopefully the burn-up between the two of them can fulfill itself come March time. It's the type of race you really want to see. But yeah, I wasn't just sure about the form of the race personally. I thought the race did fall apart in behind a few no-shows. So, also, again, I'll say it with Monkfish, with these odds-on Willie Mullins horses that are front runners, Energumene, potentially in time is actually going to be better over 2.5 miles. What on earth are people doing giving them 3 lengths out of the gate for no charge? I really didn't think that was going to happen on the weekend. I thought Unaccepted or Felix Deji or somebody like that would go and hassle him out in front, and that's the only thing we haven't seen happen. And it's a guarantee to happen in the Arkle because All Mankind's there. I'm not saying it's going to do anything to him. In fact, it may help him. Giving him a lead may improve the horse, But it's just something we haven't seen before, and I was disappointed. I just thought that the ride unaccepted after the drift was bizarre. I thought bizarre, the way they lined him up and stuff like that. But look, you coulda, woulda, shouldas really. Energumene far too good, by far the best Irish challenger for the Arkle, and he's got a brilliant chance. I think he's in there at a 5-2, 11-4. I think that's, you could make an argument he should be shorter. I think he should be maybe 2-1, 9-4. Shishkin's even money. I think, Shishkin even money, Energumene 2-1. I'd have that more as the book myself, but the bookies obviously still fancy Shishkin to get the job done. The Irish Champion Hurdle, won by Honeysuckle. Look, I've been one of Honeysuckle's critics in the past, but my God, she was good. There's just no getting away from it. And she jumped more like a 2-miler on Saturday. That was the main thing for me, was that last year she kind of fell in, and she jumped poorly all the way, and kind of fell over the line behind, in front of Darver Star and Petty Mouchoir. And that's not brilliant form, to be honest. But she was pinging hurdles there. That being said, once again, I don't know, some of these rides in behind, Rachel just had them pants down. It was a bit like Bryony on Frodon stuff. She kicks going to 2 out on a proven stair, like a 2.5 mile horse running a 2-mile race. And you get Patrick Mullins, Mark Walsh, Jack Kennedy all staring at each other saying who blinks first and goes after. Now Jack Kennedy ended up engaging and put Abracadabras into the race, and he ran a good race, I thought. I know people love to crab him, and realistically I don't think he's got any chance of winning a champion hurdle, but he's the type of horse that could place in a champion hurdle, I think. He's got the credentials for it. He's a strong traveller. His jumping's getting better, and I think on even a small bit better ground will be seen to better effect. Honeysuckle now 5-2 for the champion hurdle, and to be honest, I couldn't say that's a bad price. I think she will run in the race. I think she's got a massive chance. She's got some engine. And also, it's just one of these things, I know people were saying it last year, when she was, potentially going to run against Benny and stuff like that. Surely it's going to be easier getting £7 off a bunch of really fairly average 2-mile hurdlers than getting no pounds off potentially Concertista and Benny de Dieu. I don't know how that mare's hurdle's going to transpire, but that looks a much harder race to go and run in than, running against the likes of Abracadabras and Sanois and Sharjah, getting £7. In terms of Sanois, desperately disappointing. Look, obviously I'm going to let the slip run out in terms of, I backed him at the start of the season at 20-1. I think he's now 25-1. To be honest, he should be a 33s or 40s chance based off what he's done the last twice, but I'm going to let the slip roll, but yeah, he's well up against it. He'd need to find a new lease of life going over in Cheltenham in March. Now, occasionally these horses can find a new lease of life, but I can't see it personally based off what we've seen. The last twice at Leopardstown, he's been absolutely dreadful, and he wasn't any good there on the weekend. There was nothing to recommend about it, and it looks unfortunately like that dream, which was a bit short-lived back in kind of October, November time. It looked really good for a month or two, but I don't think that's going to come to fruition. The bumper, Kilcroot. This, I don't know what to make of this, to be honest. It was one of those you were staring at it going, is this really happening? Because it looked a really strong bumper. Let's be clear about it, brought good form. Ramillies is very highly regarded. Chemical Energy brought good form. What Do You Want brought good form. Even a couple of the rags, the Banger Doyle brought very good form, and he was a 33-50-1 shot. And he's absolutely cantered it. Now, I don't know, Patrick Mullen sometimes does this. He's a little bit Harry Cobden-esque in terms of he wins sometimes on the bridle. And there mightn't be as much under the bonnet as you think, but he walked by, he ran by, let's be clear about it, and Ramillies after, at the furlong and a half pole there, as if they were standing still. I really couldn't believe what I was watching. He's into 6-4 for the bumper. And there's dilemmas there. There really is, for me. There's a part of you that wants to believe that that was just a freakish performance. And, you know, if you're going to take him on at 6-4 in the bumper, is that not just the stupidest thing ever? Because he could do that in the bumper as well. And I do believe he's got the right style of running for the bumper. In terms of, I think you regularly need to be off the pace. They go a mad gallop in the bumper. He seems to have a high cruising speed. He travels in behind, and he can come late in races, a bit like what Fernie Allaho did last year. He could be an absolute weapon. You kind of want him to be a weapon as well. Like we were loving it because we had a horse running in his bumper in Navan for a horse racing buddy called Do This Like This for John McConnell. And actually, if you look at that race back at the 3 furlong pole turning in at Navan, we were like travelling with Kilcruit. Now, we ended up getting beaten, I think, 35 lengths or something like that into 6th or 7th. But we were very keen early, we ran a very good race. And that form looks good because the third's won since. A horse called Ballycairn of Gordon Elliott's won at Christmas time. But I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Kilcruit. There's a cynical part of me that almost wants to see it again before I believe it. But at the same time, like, it was just absolutely sensational. I thought it was sensational. I couldn't get over it because I just thought, how good a bumper is this and how much of a mockery he's making of them. I don't know. I thought it was superb. Just a quick go at Sandown on Saturday. Native River, what a legend of a horse. And it just shows you the Gold Cup is on its knees this year, because Native River, to be honest, if it was soft to heavy ground, has a bang good each way chance. He runs horses into the ground. He's a brilliant jumper of a fence, and he rolled back the years, and it was great to see. I put him up last week for the Cotswolds Chase when it was meant to be run at Cheltenham on one of my preview videos, so I kept the faith with him at Sandown, and he duly delivered. Sporting John won the Scilly Isles. I wasn't actually, I wasn't overly impressed by Shan Blue at Kempton. I know that sounds very, very strange. Look, he's an absolutely superb jumper, but the way he jumped at Kempton, like, he still would have been beaten by the big breakaway, even if the big breakaway had made all those mistakes and winged the last. The big breakaway would have beaten him. And you're there going, well, like, we've gained actually 10 or 15 lengths at all these fences, and we're still going to get beat if you know, the second fav puts in one good jump. Shamblou did the same again, like, and Sporting John made an absolute Horlicks of the last and didn't jump even early doors with much fluency and still went on to beat him cozy. So it looks like Envoy doesn't have much to worry about in terms of the English challenge. Maybe he'll have a few Irish horses to deal with. Wouldn't surprise me if the likes of a Franco de Port went up and ran in the Marsh now rather than in the Arc or something. Somebody like him, he'd give him maybe a little bit to think about, but I don't know. It wasn't a particularly inspiring performance, I don't think, for Cheltenham ambitions in the Scilly Isles. Moving on to Sunday, and I do realise I'm taking an awful lot of time here, but I'm trying to just give you more of an in-depth look. I know some people enjoy the longer videos, some people don't, so you might let me know if you are still watching at the moment whether you do enjoy these long videos, especially with in mind the Cheltenham previews I'm going to be putting up over the next week or so. On Sunday, starting off with the juvenile hurdle, Quixilios. This is one of these ones that's going to cause a bit of controversy. I wasn't impressed whatsoever by Quixilios. He seems to be a complete wise guy's horse for the Triumph hurdle. The amount of people I saw put him up for the Triumph last week, I know their slips have now been enhanced, but again, it was just one of these races. The race completely fell apart. Like, Umdor hasn't jumped a twig. Hador was, you know, pulling like a 6 furlong horse and has just been absolutely jacked at 2 out. And Sam was keen himself and was still, you know, far too keen himself, really. Made a bungler at the last and still was coming back at Quixilios at the line. I know you can say he's going to come on for the run. He hasn't run since November. I get that angle, but God, he'd need to come on an awful lot. From what I saw there today. I know some people seem to love him. I don't know whether it's the Cheveley Park thing or what, but he's not for me. I'd have Zanahiyr Streets ahead of him. And I'm not sure. I don't know where he lies. Like, he might be, you know, he's obviously second in the betting. I don't know where he lies, though. He may well be second best as Anna here, but I don't know. The likes of Adagio, I think, bring him pretty robust form. And, geez, he hit the line at Chepstow an awful lot harder than Quixilios hit the line at Leopardstown. But people will say that he had heaps under the bonnet. I'm not as convinced. I think he, like they said, both Jack Kennedy and Gordon Elliott, that he took a big blow. So he'll come on for it. I do understand that. But he's got an awful lot to prove with Zana here, I'd have thought, based off that. Appreciated winning the 2-mile novice hurdle. Again, a little bit, not under, I wouldn't have said underwhelming. I thought it was a kind of an appreciated run. Like, it was gutsy, it was hard, and he stays well, and he jumps overall pretty well. He got the run of the race to a certain degree, but he, again, you know, he did it well. It wasn't as good as Christmas time. Appreciated's a funny one. He's currently 7-4 for the Supreme, and I think that's actually quite fair. I completely understand, and I think this is where people are not maybe warming to him that much, that you feel on a norm, like in any other year, that somebody kind of really good would beat him at 2 miles. A little bit like what happened in the bumper last year. And I do understand that. I'm just staring at the Supreme market and going, well, who though? Like, I think he's got all the Irish challengers covered on form. I can't have this, that Ballyadam's going to reverse that form. I thought Ballyadam ran a great race. But again, and I was given out to, when I did the Let's Talk Racing video with Josh, I said he was a deplorable jumper. He is. He's an absolute deplorable jumper, and he doesn't find much for pressure. So, like, I can't. I don't see him reversing that form whatsoever. I think the hill over 2 miles will really, really suit Appreciated, unlike Ballyadam. Yeah, he might have an each-way chance, but I can't see him reversing that form, and he holds all the other Irish horses between the Christmas race and this race. You know, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know, is Messier going to run in the Betfair hurdle off top weight? Potentially he will be. Third time lucky. That was a bubble burst up in Musselburgh. And actually, I only had one horse to mention up in Musselburgh, and I'll bring him into the conversation now. Bareback Jack for Don McCain and Brian Hughes, I think, is a serious tool of a horse. I'm not sure whether they'll go to the Supreme with him this year. There's a part of me that kind of hopes they won't, because I think he's a long-term good prospect. But my God, I think he's a seriously good horse. He absolutely bungled the last in that race and still won by 2.5, 3 lengths. Doing it nicely as well, beating a few nice horses in the process. He's now won 3 from 3 up north, having won a point-to-point over in Ireland at the Punchestown point-to-point course. I think he's a seriously good horse and a real nice type for, you know, I suppose slightly under the radar connections. One of those big northern outfits, but those northern outfits don't get too much fun down in the south. So hopefully he might be able to pick up a pot or two in the time being. But I think he's a really nice horse. Moving on to the Flowgas Novices Chase. Monkfish is absolutely mustard, isn't he? He is such a good jumper. Now, yet again, a little bit like an Ergamine. What are they doing giving him 4 lengths out of the gate when he's a proven stayer and you know how he's going to be ridden? But this horse puts so much pressure on everyone else's jumping. You know, obviously we saw fallers in the race. Janadale took a very bad fall at around 4 or 5 out. Steering Forlange somehow didn't fall. He just doesn't look like a chaser whatsoever. He didn't actually go right that much, but I don't know, he just doesn't, he's certainly lacking conviction. Maybe that was just a spin round to get the confidence back up, and maybe we'll see a better horse next time out, but I wouldn't be too sure. Andy Dufresne ran a funny race. I thought he was travelling into the race really strongly, and then slightly weakened out, but he's a very funny horse. I think he's a bit tripless, to be honest. I think a soft ground 2 mile 2 race would be what Andy Dufresne needs. I think 2 miles seems sharp, 2.5 miles seems to stretch him. Latest exhibition, you know, it's such a shame in some respects that he's just meeting potentially one of the best novice chases we've seen in quite a long time in Monkfish. Now, there's no getting away, though. Like, you think of dropping down in trip and you've got Envoy, like, you go up in trip to the National Hunt Chase, I don't know. I'd really hope they don't. Obviously, I've backed him for the RSA, and I think he's still got a bang each way chance, but I hope they don't go to the National Hunt Chase. Like, I understand they're not going to beat Monkfish, but He's a better horse than that latest exhibition. Like, I think he'll win Grade 1s in open company, because when they go into open company, he won't have to run against Monkfish every month. Like, he can pick and choose where to go to avoid him. He ran a grand race. I thought he wasn't as sharp as Christmas time. I thought he was a little bit, behind the bridle almost all the way. I thought he ran a very credible race given the circumstances, but he was never getting to Monkfish. Like at Christmas time, you thought for a second, God, he might go by him. This time, not so much. And I think he has it up against him. But at the same time, I still think he deserves to run in the RSA. He's got the class for it. He's got the class to I think, beat everything else. But Monkfish, unfortunately, looks an immovable force and a seriously good prospect for Willie Mullins and Rich Ritchie. Ken Boy won the biggie. A bit of a disappointing race. Manila Indo, you would have liked for the Gold Cup marker to have won the race. He looked to be very sketchy at his fences. Obviously, still remembering that very heavy fall last time out. You can't recommend him at all for a Gold Cup on the back of that. Delta Work, I thought, was disappointing again. Made a few very bad mistakes early doors. I think actually if another jockey was on him, he'd have probably unseated again. Jack Kennedy does have a way to somehow cling on to this horse, but I thought he was disappointing. And Ken Boy won. Yeah, he's not going to win a Gold Cup. He loves Leopardstown. He runs well around there. Mellon was given a very odd ride. Like, I don't know what they were doing with Mellon. Like, he's never shown, when coming from behind, that he's any type of horse. All of his best performances, whether it's Champion Hurdles, whether it was the Supreme Novices, whether it was the Marsh last year, whether it was the Savills Chase at Christmas time, have all come from the front. And you ride him cold. And he never got out of fifth. Like, I thought it was bizarre ride, bizarre tactics, and it just didn't work. Grangy won the Mayor's Bumper. Very impressive. Great for the Syndicates Racing. That being said, I saw a tweet from Jack Cantillon, who's obviously the founder and kind of the main man of owners of those syndicate horses, and I think she's being retired immediately. I don't think they're going to even go to Cheltenham with her, so really bear that in mind. I think she's 16-1 for the Champion Bumper, if that's correct. Now I'm basing that just off his tweet, but he said that she was being retired with immediate effect and being covered by a decent enough stallion. So they've got their Grade 2 win in the bag, and I think she's off to foal. So that's a bit of a shame in some respects, but just bear that in mind if you're thinking about backing her for a Champion Bumper. I don't think she's going to be there, because I think she's just retired. So there you go. That's the Dublin Racing Festival all covered up in a fair bit of detail there as well for my standards. Just looking through my bets. So far, I've put up 10 on this channel this year, and they're mixed bags. Starting off with San Juan, 21 for the Champion Hurdle. That doesn't look very good at the moment. Just so you know, by the way these bets work, 10-1 plus is a 0.5 each way, and 9-1 downwards is 1 point win, unless advised otherwise. So San Juan, 20-1. God, he'd have to improve a stone and a half to even hit the frame in the Champion Hurdle. Latest exhibition at 16-1 for the RSA. Solid enough each way. Hopefully they just run there and he can pick up, second or third. And if something happened to Monkfish, he'd be there to pick up the pieces. Thyme Hill at 16-1 for the Stairs. Looks a good bet, I think. I think he's got a real good chance in the Stairs Hurdle. Obviously, Paisley Park not running in the Cleve, and I don't know what's happening there. Obviously, the Cleve got abandoned again up in Wetherby, and so I don't know what they're doing with that race. I think that suits Thyme Hill, because I think Paisley Park kind of needs runs. As for Thyme Hill, was already going to go to Cheltenham fresh. And I think that could play into our hands. I think he's a general 5-1, 9-2 chance now. So we got a decent price on him. Allaho at 12-1 for the Ryanair. Looks a good enough bet at the moment. It looked a bit fishy for a while, but I think he's around 6-1. And obviously, if Min was suddenly to be out for the season, that would increase our chances even more so. I think he's got a good chance. Delta Work at 40-1 for the Gold Cup. Doesn't look good at the moment. I'm not sure whether will they go over and run in the Gold Cup? Probably, but I thought at the time, I put him up back in November time after he ran at Down Royal, and I was just convinced he'd win one of the Leopardstown chases, and as a result he'd be a much shorter price, and it was just a value thing. but he didn't. He's ran pretty well. He obviously unseated at Christmas time, and he ran a bit flat there, which I wasn't expecting whatsoever. So he's still around 33 to 1. Couldn't really recommend him based off his 3 performances this year as a Gold Cup winner in waiting. Nassalam at 25 to 1 for the Thyme. A bit of a speculative punt at that. He's 16 to 1 currently. It was a shame Cheltenham was called off last week. It would have been nice to see him around the track and see whether he operates around there. I think Adagio's got a good chance in the Thyme. If you give Adagio a good chance, Nassalam might have a chance of squeaking into the frame, but looks up against it. Zanahiyr brings a very good level of form to the party, as do all of the Gordon Elliott runners, with Quixilios and Duffelcoat likely to be there as well. Wide receiver, 25 to 1 any race. Looks a decent enough bet. He was given a very strange ride in the Grade 1 novice hurdle there over 2 miles by Robbie Parr. It looked like he was about to pull him up. And I was actually getting very concerned at 2 out because it looked like he was about to pull up. And I was thinking, oh no, something's wrong with the horse. But then he got another second wind and kind of powered home into 9th. I thought it was a strange ride. Anyway, back up in trip, hopefully for a Martin Pipe. He'll be in there near off bottom weight, off mark 136, I believe. He is slightly, going very close to the bottom there, but hopefully he sneaks in and he's got a massive chance if he does so. Stattler 20 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett, as I said earlier. Pretty happy with that. I think he's got a good each way chance. Album Photo at 9 to 2 for the Gold Cup. He's into 3 to 1 from sitting in his box. I think he's got no stresses at the moment. I think if he can arrive in the exact same form he's done so the last 2 years, I see very hard. I find it very hard to see him getting beaten personally. The challengers are falling by the wayside, really. And when you're talking about novice chasers having a good chance of being in the Gold Cup frame, the likes of Monkfish and Royal Pagaille and stuff like that, and even, as I said earlier, with Native River, the division is slightly on its knees. And I think Album Photo should be hopefully going to sweep it up for the 3rd year in a row. And the last one was Elimay at 10 to 1 non-runner no bet for the Mare's Chase. I was quite keen to get the non-runner no bet in there. As a result, I missed out on the price of 14 to 1. Instead went for a 10 to 1, but I think it was safer. And obviously, if she doesn't run, I get the stake back. Moving on to Bet 11, which comes in one of the handicaps. And yet again, I'm going to advertise non-runner no bet. Obviously, when it gets to the Cheltenham Festival previews that I'm going to be doing over the next week or two, an awful lot of them will be non-runner no bet prices. So at this stage, I don't think I'll be putting up another runner for Cheltenham that won't be non-runner no bet. So therefore, we will be refunded if we don't have even a play at the race. And it comes in the Coral Cup. It is 20 to 1 non-runner no bet with Betfair. 25 to 1 is available with other bookies, but not non-runner no bet. I do want to stress that, so I'm going to take the 20 to 1, which is 5 points lower, but it's still a grand old each way price, especially for a horse that mightn't run, just in case. And it is the Willie Mullins trained Kashari, a horse I flagged up on Twitter actually around a month ago as a Coral Cup potential. He was 25 to 1 there, he's still 25 to 1. I thought he ran a very, very decent Coral Cup trial in the 3 mile William Fry handicap hurdle. He made a bad mistake early doors at the 3rd, I believe it was, then made a bit of a mistake at the 4th, and he was bang last for the entirety of the race. I was thinking, oh jeez, this horse is going nowhere. And to be honest, my eyes were glued at the time to Unexpected Depth of Ollie McKiernan's, who ran an absolute stormer, by the way, for good OL. But Kashari made some really, really stealthy progress from around 3 out to the line to finish 6th, beaten 20 lengths. Was not given a hard time whatsoever. He was running off a mark of 144 in Ireland. I don't think he'll be changed for that. Or shouldn't be changed for that. And I wouldn't be sure what the English handicapper will do with him. But you're looking at a max mark of, I think, 149, 150. But realistically, you're hoping for a little bit less than that. Maybe a 147, potentially. Or something around that, which would get him bang in the kind of the middle of the weights, near enough the near the top of the weights and the bottom of the weights in the Coral Cup, but I think he's got a massive chance. At 20 to 1, I think it's worth a go. If you want to go and look at his run last time out on Sunday, yesterday, and let me know what you think about it, do let me know. And obviously, if you have any sort of opinions about any of the handicaps or any eye catchers, do let me know as well. I'm going to be recording a review of the Dublin Racing Festival with Josh over on the Let's Talk Racing channel. Hopefully tonight to go out tomorrow. So if you could go and look at that as well, I'd really, really appreciate it. And of course, if you did like this video and liked the longer video as well, do let me know, and like the video and comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Obviously just over 2,400 subscribers now. So if you're new, really welcome. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully we can go about trying to back a few winners for Cheltenham now. It's getting closer and closer. A lot of the main trials have been done, and as I've said a couple of times throughout this video, I'll be starting the preview videos for this either late this week or early next week, maybe early next week, because I'll do a Betfair Hurdle and Newbury preview at the end of this week. Hopefully at some stage. I've been very busy recently, but with college and stuff like that. So hopefully get something like that out in the coming days. And of course, if you see me on other channels, especially Let's Talk Racing, hopefully you enjoy that as well, and subscribe to those channels as well. And until next time, where, as I say, I'll be back to preview the Newbury action on the weekend. Stay safe, best of luck, land a few bets during the week, and I'll see you guys then. Cheers.